Hey, you want straight answers? Ask a straight lady.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in episode 7 of Agatha All Along. So the title of this episode is Death's Hand in Mine, which is a line from the Ballad of the Witch's Road, just like all the other titles in this season. Now, the reference here is obvious. Lilia dies at the end of the episode. She literally courts death. But there's another layer to it. You see, Lilia's walked hand in hand with death for her entire life because of her divination power. Her foresight made her unable to escape death even when it wasn't her time. Rio even alludes to that when she says,
"Don't you recognize me, Lilia?"
The episode opens on Lilia falling, and notice the yellow haze around her eyes. Now originally I thought it was from the trees, but she fell through the tar. But you know what else was framed this way? Wanda's first encounter with the Scarlet Witch. Later, Lilia says,
"I saw what was going to happen to you that night. I saw who you were and who you would become."
And she knows as soon as she wakes up that Billy is Wanda's son.
The son of the Scarlet Witch telepathically kicked us off the road.
I bet Lilia remembered everything she saw at Billy's bar mitzvah, which may have included a vision of the Scarlet Witch. The fall itself is a reference to the sunken place in Get Out. Now it might seem random, but in both cases the characters can't control their own minds. In Get Out, Chris is forced into hypnosis, while in this show, Lilia can't keep her thoughts straight because she's experienced her life so out of sequence. We cut to Agatha and Billy on the Witch's Road, and notice that the leaves are yellow, a nod to the yellow brick road from The Wizard of Oz. Agatha says,
I'll get a nosebleed trying that hard to read my mind.
which is a callback to this line in WandaVision.
My thoughts are not available to you, Toots. They never ever were.
Then she says,
Any other queries for your old babysitter?
now in WandaVision, Agatha's their babysitter for one episode.
I promise I won't bite. I actually did bite a kid once.
But this is also a comic Easter egg. In the comics, Agatha originally appeared as Franklin Richards' nanny, and later on, after Wanda had her twins, Agatha Harkness was their governess as well. Billy says,
"She's not my mom. I have a mom."
and this is another dynamic that is explored in the comics. Billy's in a weird situation where he literally has two moms, his mystical birth mother and then the woman who actually raised him. And for the first time since Multiverse of Madness, Marvel acknowledges that Wanda may be alive.
Is Wanda Maximoff really dead?
Yes. No. Maybe.
In fact, it really suggests that she is alive because of this.
Did you see a body?
Yes, I did.
Did anybody else?
It's hard to say.
We know that no one else saw a body because when Agatha shows Billy the pictures, they're actually photos of flowers. And we can assume that Herb didn't see the body because if he did, he'd be freaking out. After all, he was not in a cop show hex. He would just be an average citizen seeing a dead person. Also, great musical choice here. You can actually hear the WandaVision theme.
Yes, I did.
Did anybody else?
It's hard to say.
The road leads them to a castle, a clear reference to the Wicked Witch of the West Castle and the Wizard of Oz. And notice that Agatha says,
The road is a fickle mistress.
which could refer to Hecate, the goddess of magic. On the drawbridge, we see a waxing gibbous moon. Elementally, a waxing moon is associated with air, foreshadowing how Lilia will kill the Salem Seven by changing the direction of the room, causing them to fall through the air.
Well, person, I'm leaving for vacation in Spain.
Oh, I had no idea you were even leaving. You even changed your shirt.
Yep, and I'm going to be totally off the grid because I'll be in Spain, so my phone won't work. Finally, some peace and quiet.
Doug, your phone will work in Spain.
Yeah, but I don't want to switch out my SIM card or pay some company $1 bajillion a day. I am off the grid.
No, buddy, you're not listening. I was just in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and I was able to use my data the entire time for a very low cost because I used an eSIM card with Saily. They're the sponsor of this video. See, I travel a lot, and I always had to pay these exorbitant daily fees to use my phone. So trust me when I tell you, Saily eSIM is the way to go. Everywhere I went in the Scottish Highlands, I was able to use my phone to watch videos, play games, and best of all, share my experiences on social media. And when I went on the Game of Thrones studio tour, I was able to show off all of the costumes and props in real time. It was so cool. So here's how Saily works. You download it from the App Store, and then you activate it before you even arrive at your destination. You choose your data plan, and then you make sure to apply our coupon code ScreenCrush for 15% off. That's our exclusive discount. And then you can make calls, use the internet, and it makes traveling so much more fun and stress-free. Saily is easy and all plans are compatible with iOS and Android devices. And they offer 24/7 support and a full refund if your device is not eSIM compatible. Guys, I have been traveling abroad for years and I wish that I knew about Saily. It is easy, convenient, and it's like bringing a little piece of home with you on your trip. So to get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily data plans, use code ScreenCrush at checkout. Click the link below or scan this QR code. So Doug, you don't have to worry about getting off the grid. You can bring the grid with you.
Ah, jeez.
Now back to what I was saying. Additionally, the waxing gibbous phase is associated with finality because it's the final phase before a full moon. This fits perfectly with Lilia. Throughout this episode, she's literally heading towards the final moments of her life. It's also perfectly timed with the show because this is the last episode before the two-part finale. When they enter the trial, Agatha turns into the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, and Billy turns into Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. And notice that these are two witches that were massively retconned in pop culture. The Wicked Witch of the West was most famously changed in the book Wicked, which then became the musical, where she went from an evil magic user to a misunderstood, powerful witch standing up to a corrupt system. Disney has also had its own Wicked Witch of the West retcon in Oz, the Great and Powerful. Now, in that movie, she's more evil, but it's still a lot more understandable. Now, obviously, that movie's had nowhere near the impact of Wicked, but hey, Marvel is a Disney property, so we thought we should mention it. Maleficent's also had a major retcon, spearheaded by Disney in 2014's Maleficent and its sequel, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. In that movie, Maleficent changes from an evil witch to a woman scorned and a mother figure to Aurora. These costume choices were not accidental. They're hinting that both Billy and Agatha aren't evil, but are simply misunderstood. Also, I love the idea that Agatha just inspired all of these pop culture villains.
She's based on me, you know.
And this is also a callback to her bike and basket in WandaVision, which of course was a callback to Mrs. Gulch, aka the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. The table reads, "Your path winds out of time." This refers to Lilia, who's skipping around time, as well as the actual episode structure. But I want to point out this isn't the first time we've seen this done in the MCU. Loki literally slipped around time in season 2, and any characters like Deadpool and Wolverine who are pulled out of their universe and plopped into new ones are also out of time, as they are literally out of their own timeline. Also, around the edges of the table, there's both astrological signs and planetary symbols. Astrology actually goes way deeper than people think. The basic sign most people know is like their own sun sign, but there's actually 12 signs that make up your entire astrological chart, including all of the planets as well as the moon and ascendant. There are also gold scarabs carved into the base of the table. Now, scarabs represent rebirth, which could symbolize how Lilia finds herself in her final tarot reading. So this is the tarot trial, and in case you aren't familiar with tarot, let us explain. Tarot is a divination practice that uses 78 cards, each with their own specific meaning. A practiced tarot reader not only knows every card, but they can figure out how they all work together.
Proper tarot takes time and care.
The first card that Billy pulls for Agatha is the Chariot, and major shout out to our intern Elias who helped with our tarot breakdown. The Chariot embodies victory, specifically through control and determination, and this is the ethos of the episode. Lilia powered through all the gaps, remembered who she was, and returned to her love of witchcraft, which allowed her to overcome both the trial and the Salem Seven. And speaking of tarot, I have to show you guys this new shirt that I am so stoked about. It is a tarot card of the Bees, calling back to a seminal moment from the show WandaVision.
Not the Bees!
This is in addition to the other Agatha parody merch we have for sale at our merch store, as well as this sweet new Venom merch. My Little Symbiont, Bully Maguire, Dirty Dancing, and Denim. I'm really sorry about that last one. Links to these and our Agatha parody merch are below. The next card Billy pulls is the Seven of Swords reversed, which does not symbolize truthfulness as Billy says.
But it's reversed. So that means the opposite.
Instead, it symbolizes self-deceit and secrets. The next card is pulled by Agatha. It's the Hanged Man. Now, the Hanged Man is about sacrifice, which hints that we'll find out what happened between Agatha and Nicholas in the finale. In this overhead shot, we can see all the cards she pulled. The first is the Two of Wands, which symbolizes being unable to make a decision, or being pulled between two things. I think in this case, she'll be pulled between Rio and Billy, or Nicholas and Billy. The next card is the Wheel of Fortune, which we also saw last episode. This represents the cycles of change, and fate as a whole. And then we see the World card, which focuses on completion and fulfillment. Now, because of its placement in the spread, it shows obstacles that she might face, implying that achieving her goal will lead to more difficulties. We also see the Page of Swords, which can represent new ways to communicate, which for Agatha is just any honest communication at all. And then the last card we see is the Ten of Swords, which symbolizes complete failure and exhaustion. In the spread, it's in the destination slot, and in the trailer, we heard Agatha say,
I want my prize!
so my guess is that the road is not going to give her what she wants. Also, as she madly pulls the cards, she just lets out a stereotypical witch cackle, just like Rio did on the broom. We switch to Lilia and Jen, who are in the tunnels beneath the road, and then we see exactly what's been happening during all of those weird blips in the season.
Kooky. Which is it? Am I wispy or am I kooky?
So I love the use of a fisheye lens here. It just makes everything feel so distorted and off. It really puts us in her shoes. And then we see little Lilia and Sicily. Now, tarot was actually created in Italy in the 1500s, but here they're using tea leaves. So I wonder if Lilia actually created tarot cards in this universe. At the very least, we can assume that she was an early adopter. Also notice, even as a child, she is wearing the same necklace, and it matches the necklace that her teacher is wearing. Later in the episode, she tries to claim that she doesn't want a coven, but in reality, she has worn a piece of jewelry related to her coven for more than 500 years. Her teacher also wears a similar necklace, but hers is more like an infinity sign, echoing the sentiment that time is a circle.
It's like a snake eating its own tail.
There's also a sounding bowl on the table. Now, typically sounding bowls are used to ground people in the present. It could mean that the teacher was trying to prevent Lilia from slipping all those years ago. Back in the tunnel, she says,
The flow of time is an illusion, Jen. Most people don't realize that.
which again is a lot like season 2 of Loki.
Yeah, or like when Billy Pilgrim comes unstuck in time and Kurt Vonnegut's seminal work, Slaughterhouse 5.
Or like in that. Then we switch to the trial, which now includes Lilia. She is dressed as the Good Witch Glinda from The Wizard of Oz. And notice they even put a little eye on her crown to represent her second sight. But this is the first time she is not wearing her pendant. This symbolizes that she has now let go of her trauma with her old coven and has actually allowed herself to join this new coven. Jen is costumed as the evil queen from Snow White. So this outfit stands in stark contrast to her beauty-obsessed persona from earlier episodes. And on our Discord server, which by the way was popping off last night, you should really join our Discord. On our Discord server, one of our users, Loremonger, theorized that this could symbolize Jen letting go of some of her own vanity. After all, the evil queen's main goal was to be the fairest maiden in the land. Agatha says,
At your prompting, Dory.
Back off, Agatha, she's having a day.
and I have to point out, this implies that at some point, Agatha watched Finding Nemo. Darkhold Agatha Harkness watched a kids movie, and if Marvel was brave, they would give us an Agatha and Madison with the Y watch party scene. Jen says,
Focus up, Calderu, we can be culturally offended later.
and that actually hints to a lot of issues with classic witch portrayals. Witches are always portrayed as old, ugly, or disabled, which villainize real people with those physical traits. Lilia says,
I saw what was going to happen to you that night. I saw who you were and who you would become.
which lends credence to our theory that she saw Secret Wars. We have a great video on that up right now, and you should check it out. Lilia skips through time until she is with her teacher again. When she asks if she has a coven, Lilia says,
It didn't work out for me the first time. It's sure not going well now. It's better to be a hermit.
so the Hermit is another tarot card that represents solitude and introspection. The Hermit is inherently alone, and this goes against the very nature of witchcraft. Lilia has chosen to isolate herself away from a coven, not only diminishing her own power, but separating her from her own culture. All of these trials center around the witch facing their trauma. Earlier in the episode, her teacher says,
This is a fiction you told yourself and tell yourself still.
The easy road.
it was easier for her to hide from her own gift and her connection with others than it was for her to face her trauma. But in doing so, she also robbed herself of her own healing and enlightenment. A spiritual journey is never easy. It requires work. And it's sad that Lilia only reaches enlightenment moments before her death. Her mother also says,
Your task is not to control, but to see.
which is a common refrain in spiritual teaching. We cannot control the world, and trying to control it only leads to more suffering.
Every time someone tries to win a war before it starts, innocent people die. Every time.
Instead, we just have to see or acknowledge what is around us and deal with it as it comes. We head back to the tunnels, and I want to highlight this interaction between Lilia and Jen.
You said this used to happen to you when you were younger. Why did it stop?
Because I wanted it to. Because all I saw was death.
Later, Lilia says that Jen is the path forward, and it's because these characters are mirrors. For one, Lilia spent her entire life around death. Meanwhile, Jen's ability allowed her to bring new life into the world via her obstetrics practice. Lilia's also running away from her power, while Jen would do anything to get it back. Trauma prevents them both from accessing their own full power, but on opposite sides of the spectrum. Lilia and Jen hop into the trial, and notice they come in right after Billy says,
Wish Lilia was here.
like his mother, he is way more in tune with magic than he knows. To the tarot, Billy asks,
Am I William or am I Billy?
and I think this will be very important. Billy clearly wants to find his brother, but he doesn't ask about him here. Now, we've theorized that Agatha's greatest wish isn't actually to get her power back, but rather it's to know what happened to her son. For Billy, his actual greatest wish is to know who he is. At the end of the road, that's the knowledge he'll actually gain. And then, the Tommy plot point can be resolved in the show Vision Quest, which we have a video coming about soon. Be sure to subscribe and check it out. It also might reflect how Billy doesn't want to be the Scarlet Witch's son. In the comics, the Avengers are scared that he'll lose control, just like his mom did. And in this show, he's very touchy about his relationship with her.
She's not my mom.
He might be scared that people will villainize him if they know that he is related to her. The first card that Billy pulls is the Magician.
You have enormous potential and the ability to turn all of your goals into reality.
And notice how Agatha looks at him. It's all because of that little word, reality. Wanda's chaos magic literally lets her bend reality to her will, and this isn't necessarily a good thing. Remember, the most powerful displays of her power was the Hex, where she bent reality but at the expense of everyone else. We also see this card in the credits surrounded by 5 other cards, presumably the other members of the Coven. And I can't believe that we just noticed this, but the word fate is circled in red. And on the release schedule poster, episode 6 was also circled in red, aka the episode that revealed Billy's fate. Oh my god, this show is so good. The next card Billy pulls is the Sun.
The sun, good fortune, joy, reunion.
And this is, of course, referring to a potential reunion with Tommy. When another sword falls, Lilia flips through time, and it's revealed what happened to her coven.
Our entire coven wiped out by a fever? I saw it.
Now, we actually saw hints of that in episode 3, when Lilia sees a member of her coven standing with death. In that episode, she even says, she also says,
I'm a forgotten woman.
and this is a very common sentiment among older women. Our society really values youth, and it's even more intense for women because of the insane beauty standards. Women over a certain age are just pushed aside and ignored by the general public. Even a TV show like this, where the majority of the cast is women above the age of 40, is exceedingly rare. And unfortunately, many women internalize those feelings and stop themselves from experiencing life because they feel like they're too old. So it's very empowering to see an older woman achieving this enlightenment and continue to chase her goals. Then Lilia says,
I was falling. I will fall.
and suddenly the imagery on her necklace makes sense. The 2 hands reflecting each other is a reference to the phrase, as above, so below, which was popular among occultists in the 1800s. As above, so below essentially refers to celestial mechanics, how the earth changes cyclically, resulting in one giant loop. As such, time really is a flat circle instead of a linear progression, and Lilia, as a character, can hop through this circular time pattern because it's all happening at once. She has fallen, she will fall, and she is falling at all times. And also, she begins to kind of control when she's able to slip. For example, instead of being thrown around like she's been in the past, Lilia intentionally looks at Jen before she's even slipped to the next time. So, in the tunnels, they see a train, which is actually a reference to something that Sharon said earlier in the season.
All I would have expected to see down here were remnants of our failed public transit system.
But I thought the road existed outside of time and space.
Well, it does, but there are probably places where the barrier between dimensions is thinner. We saw this all the way back in the Dark World when Jane Foster found the ether. And more recently, we saw this with incursions, like we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home and in the Marvels. And then the Salem Seven show up. Now, I cannot get over how creepy they are. They're taking references from the creepiest witch media, including American Horror Story and Suspiria, with a tiny dash of Lord of the Rings Black Riders thrown in there. The costumes, particularly the headpieces, even remind me of the Bene Gesserit from Dune. Once again, Lilia chooses when and where she's going to slip through time when she goes back into the trial.
I know what I did wrong. My path winds out of time.
When Lilia says,
I am the traveler.
it's not just because she is the traveler in the specific tarot reading, but because she is the traveler through life. She travels the time stream, so to speak. The first card she pulls up is the Queen of Cups.
Empathetic, Intuitive, inner voice to be trusted.
And this also goes along with the moon phase that we saw at the entrance. The waxing gibbous moon is in the air phase, and air signs are known for their intuitive and communicative nature. The next card she pulls is the Three of Pentacles.
Singular voice is waiting to harmonize. I needed you, my coven.
Which reiterates that Lilia missed out on her potential by isolating herself. She needed a coven, and the only way for them to get to the end is to work as a coven together. And then she pulls the Knight of Wands and says,
Path behind.
so yes, unfortunately Alice is dead. Then she confirms that Jen is the High Priestess.
Immense spiritual power, unable or unwilling to use it.
And I think this means that Jen will play a key part in the next 2 episodes. I've theorized that Jen isn't actually bound because she said the men who attacked her didn't have magic.
Bound me without magic.
So I bet in the final episode she'll rediscover her power and help fight death, or whatever the big bad is at the end of the road. It's revealed that Agatha is the Three of Swords, and notice she is in the obstacles placement.
Heartbreak, sorrow, grief.
I think she'll be pulled between her love for Rio and her maternal love for Billy in the finale, especially because the leaves on her card are blue, just like Billy's powers. And then, finally, we get the Tower reversed, which we saw last episode.
It means miraculous transformation.
Now, this is actually Tommy and Billy on the card, and the cool thing about its reversal is that they are no longer falling. Instead, they're floating upwards, as in floating away from the hex to find new bodies. And then we finally get the Rio as Death reveal that we've been waiting for all season.
Rio is.
I love the design they used. She is based off of Lady Death from the comics, and we've actually seen her once before in this show during Lilia's hallucination.
So who's Lady Death?
Great question. So, according to Marvel themselves, Death is a cosmic entity who has existed since the creation of the universe. She generally rules over the realm of death and oversees lesser gods of death and the afterlife, like the Asgardian Hela. So yeah, Rio is like Hela's boss. Now we have to note that Death and Thanos have a weird relationship in the comics. Essentially, he performs the snap because he is in love with her. They probably won't retcon that into the MCU, but who knows? Maybe it was Rio all along. Also notice that in one hand she holds a knife, and in the other hand she holds a flower. Death in tarot is not as horrifying as it sounds. It symbolizes ending, but it also means rebirth. This entire episode has focused on the fact that time is cyclical, and death can serve as an embodiment of that. So on one hand, Rio holds a tool to kill, but in the other, she holds the creation of new life. And if you really want to get dark, the flower represents creation of new life through death. When people or animals die, their decomposing bodies feed the soil, leading to creation of new plant life. And this is why Rio isn't a green witch, but she is literally nature, both death and the life that sprouts from it.
More the green witch.
When it's revealed, Agatha says,
What can I say? I like the bad boys.
but I think it's actually deeper than that. Rio is actually one of the few people who has witchy abilities that Agatha is incapable of killing. They say that in the first episode.
So take my power.
It's cute, but you know that would kill me.
Now because of that, Rio wasn't horrified by her powers like everybody else, but she also probably led her down a dark and murderous path, like she did to Thanos in the comics. Lilia says,
Everyone in the Iron Maiden.
now Iron Maidens were a torture device from the medieval period. Now I don't want to get into it because they were just brutal, but just know it is a very, very bad way to die.
So are we going to talk about the fact that Lilia is literally Glinda?
Where do you keep showing up from?
I told you, it's not important. But what is important is that Lilia is literally Glinda, and she restored the entire Coven just like the Wizard and Glinda did in The Wizard of Oz. As she's leaving, she tells Agatha,
When she calls you a coward, hit the deck.
which I'm guessing is the info she'll need to get home, just like Linda tells Dorothy about the shoes.
Tap your heels together 3 times and think to yourself, there's no place like home.
And she gives Billy his spellbook back, literally giving him a brain just like the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz. And most touchingly, throughout this whole episode, she's given Jennifer a heart. In episode 3, Jennifer rushed to the exit. She was the first one out of there. And in episode 4, she almost didn't leave her protection circle.
So what, you live in that circle now? Maybe.
All she has cared about this entire time was herself and making sure she was safe. She's helped others, but never at risk to herself. But in this episode, she says,
I'm not going before you.
she put Lilia's safety in front of her own. Their relationship gave Jennifer a heart, just like the Tin Man. It's such good writing, especially because just an episode ago, Lilia would have hated being Glinda because she hates all the stereotypes. She's able to accept her role not just as a witch, but as a protector and as a helper. It's such a great arc for her. I couldn't be happier with how they wrote the episode, and I think this one little touch of her literally being Glinda is perfect. Huh. I love good writing. Okay. Bye. I'm gonna go back to the netherworld, but don't worry, I will show up again.
So creepy. So then Lilia says,
I loved being a witch.
And that is a huge turn for her character. All she said up to now is how she hates being a witch, and how much she resents all of the stereotypes.
Do you see any pointy hats in here? Any green skin? Any brooms? No, sir.
But now, in a literal movie costume, she embraces her witchiness. This goes hand in hand with the death card and her sacrifice. Like I said, the death card is not just death, it's rebirth. Lily has achieved enlightenment and reborn into her witchy self, and that is why we don't actually see her death. We see her change. And in the last moments before she dies, she slips back in time to her first lessons. She is quite literally reborn.
That's so beautiful, person. I think I might cry.
I know, it's such a good show, but I have bad news. We don't see all of them fall. We only see 5 bodies. So 2 of the Salem 7 are still out there. My guess is that it's Vertigo and one of the birds, but they will definitely make an appearance next episode. Guys, I cannot wait for the finale next week, but God, I am gonna miss this show. And the music over the end credits is Jim Croce's classic Time in a Bottle, which has a deep connection to WandaVision. Remember, that was the scene that played during Quicksilver's classic scene in Days of Future Past. And of course, the actor who played Quicksilver, Evan Peters, sort of reprised the role as Wanda's brother in WandaVision. Now, I don't think this song choice is an accident. I think they're setting us up for a big reveal later on, but we're going to talk about that in a video posting tomorrow. And just a reminder, if you want to geek out with us about Agatha in person, we are doing an 11-city tour. You'll see behind-the-scenes footage, all the hot takes we can't see on the internet, and then you can hang out with the team. The links for the tickets are below, and I can't wait to see you guys in person. So what did you guys think of this episode? Was there anything we missed? Big shout out to Brianna McLarty, who wrote this video. You can find her social links below, and you can talk to me on our Discord, Twitter, comments, all that stuff below. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.